Okay. How do I know you're from Barclays? Okay. I'm about to go into a meeting, so I'll try that later.
Okay. Yeah, hello everybody. Good morning and good afternoon or good evening from wherever you're joining us from. And I want to welcome you to Raise the Standard webinar. It's a gathering of educators and change makers and policy makers. And I really want to appreciate you for taking this time out to join us for this impactful session. Thank you very much. So it's right about 10 a.m. on my time. So we're just going to give about 2 minutes for others to join us before we continue. So please don't go away. Just stay back and relax. We'll join you. We'll continue in about 2 minutes from now. Thank you, everyone. All right. So once again, good morning, everyone. I can see we have lots of people from different parts of the country. So I want you to drop a message. Tell us your name and where you're joining us from. And also let me know if you can hear me clearly. So first, go to your Q&A. Tell us your name and where you're joining us from. I can see we have people from Nairobi. We have people from America. We have lots of people from Nigeria as well. So if you can hear me clearly, just let me know. Oh, California, thank you for joining us. Wow, wow, wow. Thank you, thank you. Oh, thank you all my people from Nigeria. Thank you, thank you. It's really going to be an impactful session. Wow, from Far East, in Kaduna, Nairobi. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, so we're still waiting for two of our panelists, and but we're going to continue. Wow, from wherever you are, whatever school it is, Day Waterman, Chrisland, all your questions are going to be answered. Oh, we have lots of gift cards. There's going to be e-certificates, but you have to stay to the end of the webinar. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so I think we're going to start now. We're going to start right away. So once again, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, and thank you for joining us. It gives me great joy to be able to put this up. A great joy to have this powerful session. And I'm going to be your host today. My name is Victor Ajala. I'm the convener of Lead Educators Network. And I'm truly honored to have this gathering of passionate educators, school leaders, and visionaries, people who are passionate about making a difference in education and improving the future of learning. Now, let's be real. Raising the standard in education, a lot of people think it's a one man's job. People think, oh, it's the government, it's the school leaders. But we need to know that it is a collective effort of everybody. Policymakers, change makers, school leaders, government, parents, all stakeholders. We need to put ends together to really bridge the gap and raise the standard in education. We're here today not just because of academics. We are here because of our children. We're here to raise values. We're here to instill creativity. We're here to impact resilience, character in our children. And that takes intentional leadership from everybody. So that's why we have brought together some of the finest minds in education. We're going to be having Mrs. Folashade Adefisayo here. We have John Todia with us. We're going to be having Mrs. Abimbola Ogundere and Mrs. Regina Jemide. So when the time comes, we'll introduce them properly. And to all our speakers, we want to say thank you very much. Thank you for lending your voice to really make a change in education. And to everyone joining us, this is your moment. This is a session. Let it inspire you. Let it challenge you. I want you to take back everything you are going to be learning in this place. Take it back to your team, to your school, to your organization, to your country. Take it back to every child, one child at a time. That is the slogan. You can make a difference with no matter your circle of influence, you can stand up and make a change. Don't wait for nobody. Don't wait for anyone. Just pick up something and make a difference. And that little thing that you do, I can tell you it will go far in helping a child. It will go far in bringing up the standard. So once again, I want to say thank you to everybody for joining us, and stay back, and it's going to be a truly powerful time. So let's take a dive into some of the housekeeping rules for today. So please, I want you to stay active. Stay active in the comment section. Whatever lesson you've learned, drop them. Like I said, we are going to be having lots of gift cards, not sponsored by me though. $10 gift cards, and we're going to be having certificate of attendance as well. Keep your microphone muted, and like I said before, get engaged, get engaged. And this session is also recorded. So at the end of this seminar, we are going to forward it to all participants. And once more, I want you to stay to the end of the program, because at the end, we're going to send out a survey that will ask you questions about your names and your emails, and we're going to send out the certificate of attendance. So thank you, everybody. It's going to be a powerful time with everyone. So thank you. So we have all our facilitators here. Okay, Mrs. Folashade Adefisayo, please can you check if she's on? Wow. All right. So, Mr. John, are you ready with us? I think we can start with you.
Yeah, good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Okay, I'm promoted, I guess.
Oh, yeah, you're promoted now. Thank you once again for joining us. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us this morning. So my name is John Todd. I'm the founding head and director of education at Charterhouse Lagos, the first British independent school in Nigeria.
Okay. So just one second. We are going to introduce you.
I've already done it, so let's just move on, shall we?
Okay, it's fine. Let's go on.
So my time in school leadership, you can see I'm quite old. I've worked in Kenya in the past, the UK, Singapore. I spent 6 years here in Nigeria at Green Springs some time ago, and then moved over to Qatar, and I spent 10 years then, including COVID, in China. And I then moved back to Nigeria I think it was 3 years ago now, to work on this project. And I've been working on this project with Charterhouse Lagos for 5 years in August, but longer as a consultant. I've worked in some top tier international schools. So I was head of a Dulwich College International in China, and also regional director and director of safeguarding. And that experience in top tier schools is something I will come back to later. The understanding of what does good actually mean. It's great saying we want to improve, we want to get better, but half the time people don't understand what that even looks like. The other thing I'll be wanting people to think about is the difference between intentions and actually systemic improvement. The difference between what I talk to my teachers sometimes about, going to one of those seminars of 10 good ways to teach maths. We go to that for an hour, come back, and it makes not the slightest bit of difference to our classroom practice. So how do we embed systems within our education that actually make a difference? And the big idea that I want to put to you is at the end of the day, excellence isn't about spending lots of money. It isn't about having to go overseas. It's absolutely not about getting on a plane to go to a conference. That's probably the biggest waste of money you can do. It's about rigor, it's about clarity, and actually it's about consistency, being systematic with things. So the first thing I want to get you to think about is teachers. If you look at studies on education, the single biggest difference in the classroom is the teacher. So there's books now, there's some wonderful books of meta studies about education. The answer we always get is the teacher makes the biggest difference. So you can do all sorts of different things. The simple answer is improving the quality of your teachers will improve the quality of the learning, will improve the quality of your school. So if you're looking for a silver bullet, and there is not a silver bullet in education, but if you're looking for the single most effective way of improving the learning standards in your school, invest in teacher education. I mean, I could almost stop there, because investing in teacher education is the single biggest thing you can do to raise standards. Okay. How you do that, of course, becomes the challenge. So some things to think about. Professional development has to become a non-negotiable thing in your school. It needs to be, you need to invest in sustained professional growth, not one-off, not conferences, but sustained in-school professional growth. For me, in most cases, these 10 ways to teach maths, 6 ideas for teaching geography are a complete waste of time. Pretty much, when you look at the impact of them, it's around 0 most of the time. More useful is small and often. Think about small changes, working on them a little bit week after week over an extended period of time. And if you think about the science of learning, we can look at learning as the change of long-term memory. If you think about Rosenshine's principles, I'm sure many of you are familiar with Rosenshine's principles. If not, go and look at them. A change in long-term memory only happens after sustained practice. So thinking about something for an hour does not change the way you do something. Thinking about something again and again and deliberate practice changes how you do it. That's how you do things with your children. So why would we not do that with our adults? Because adults essentially learn in the same way as children. So sustained practice, systemic improvement, it's really important. And the other piece within that is this idea of teacher agency. Teachers need to have a level of ownership within the process. It can't be a top-down approach completely, and it can't be let's all do the same thing. Because again, we know that doesn't work in our classrooms. One of the problems of teacher training is we know how to teach in classrooms, and yet when we do it with our teachers, that theory all goes out the window, and we sit and lecture them for 3 hours, and then are surprised it makes no difference. We shouldn't be surprised. Number 2 in this, use evidence. Use evidence. I'm shocked still when I hear people here in Nigeria, particularly talking about, for example, learning styles, a theory debunked 10 years ago now. And yet I went to a conference a couple of years back and people are still preaching learning styles. It makes no sense. There's no evidence for it. So go back to the evidence. What is the science? We know how children learn. Therefore, your teaching should build on the idea of how children learn. In our school, we use a program called the Great Teaching Toolkit. Great Teaching Toolkit. It's from evidence-based education. it's excellent. It's not, maybe not something that everyone can buy into, but you can certainly get a lot of their materials for free. So the Great Teaching Toolkit is really important, is a really good resource, and it breaks practice down into clear areas. It's a very scientific approach to developing your practice. So please take a look at that. And look at these myths and outdated beliefs. And when we're talking about global best practice, that means you have to base whatever you're doing in science. And there's a lot of good research out there that connects theory to practice. So get an understanding of what is fact and what is a fad. And if you're not sure learning styles are an absolute fad, it's not true. But I'm sure someone will ask me afterwards why, and I won't answer the question. I would also say, people often say, well, it's easy, you've got lots of money. I wish. It is not about money. There are lots of free resources out there online. Lots of UK, US, particularly universities, have really great material online. The challenge is more about attitude, because everyone wants that quick silver bullet, the quick fix. Help me get better. The answer is we can't. You think about some of those ideas that have come through, around 10,000 hours. But so the reality is, it is sustained, systemic practice. It is about an attitude towards improvement. That's the only way you're actually going to make a difference. And that attitude has to be driven from the classroom. It also has to be driven from leadership. And to make a habit stick, people have to keep poking you. People have to remind you, maybe reward you, although it worries me when people only come to a seminar because of a gift card or because of a certificate. You talk about extrinsic and intrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation, the desire to improve, is far more powerful than someone giving you a piece of paper. So if your sole reason is for being here is to get a piece of paper, please think again. That's not what teaching is about. The second thing I would say to schools is be clear who you are. Many schools have mission statements, vision statements. For us, we talk about a values statement. But so many schools are trying to be everything to everybody. We were asked the other day, why don't you offer WIAC? And I said, well, that's not who we are. We offer what we offer. If you want to do WIAC, there are some great schools down the road that offer WIAC. Please feel free to go there. This is our offering. This is what we do. We're clear about the academics. We're clear about the values. We're clear where we want to go. And we're not just adding some kids just for a kind of short-term gain. So be clear, think medium to long-term. Excellence just takes time. For us, that means British academic traditions. That means strong pastoral care. That means a British curriculum. So think about, what is it that you do? What is it that you offer? And stick to it. Don't keep changing. And then invest for the long term. And I keep saying this, I think it's kind of a repetitive. Stop trying to just instantly fix everything, to grow very quickly, focusing purely on flashy results. It is not about that. Yes, that will help you in the short term, but it won't necessarily help you in the long term. So think about clear, consistent, and being patient. Take your time. It will take time to get there. My third theme to think about would be around culture. And how do you build culture, because there's a big word again these days, the idea of culture, that sense of what does it feel like? What's the way we do things? And you need to start thinking about systems, data, and evidence. And I've already talked about evidence. And we need to remember teaching now, learning, the science of learning is becoming much more evidence driven. We're escaping from the kind of fads, the ideas that this might be a good idea. Quite often these are found, some of these ideas have been proved to be wrong. So what you need to think about is, how can the systems within my school support excellence? You need to make sure you have routines. So if you're looking at, let's say, quality of practice in classrooms, how often do you do it? Because doing it once a year is a waste of time. Doing it once a month, doing peer evaluations, or doing it once or twice a term, that's far more effective, because that cycle of improving teachers, we go in, we do a session with them, they do a class, we give them feedback, they work on something, we go back and look, they work on something. It's that cycle of improvement, just as it is with our children. So get away from one-offs, think about consistency. There is a cost, of course, that costs time. But if you want to improve, you have to invest in these kind of things. You need to track progress. So when you're looking at improving, you need to think about, well, what does good look like? How am I going to know if I've got to the next level? Where is that next level? So you need to define some ideas of what good teaching, what good learning looks like. And the Great Teaching Toolkit, in fact, is a really good resource for that. It breaks practice down into a number of areas, so you can focus on one small bit. Hold people accountable positively through giving them feedback and coaching them. Inspection is not the way, in my opinion. Inspection is a top-down telling you what you're supposed to do, and it doesn't always work. So I'm really not an inspection fan. What we very much look at is going into classrooms, talking with teachers, helping them to develop small piece by small piece over a 1-year cycle. So we get them to define one piece of their practice, maybe questioning skills they want to improve. They do that for 1 year, not one Friday for 1 hour, for 1 whole year, with multiple feedback sessions, with multiple discussions, 1 whole year to improve one small piece. That, to me, is what quality professional learning looks like. We also are working with them constantly to give them feedback, so they know how can they get better, and where the next piece is. And that then builds a culture of feedback, that builds a culture of accountability into the school. And we're then on that story around continual growth, that it's not going to happen quickly. The final piece here, I would say, is use research, use the data, use the information that is out there. Don't rely on, well, we've done it this way for 20 years. Why would I change now? This is the way this school has always done it. That doesn't make it the right way to do it. Be ready to throw out some ideas that you think were good, and then you'll find out that maybe they were the things that were holding you back. So think about a culture where evidence actually matters. And when you do something, you have to ask yourself, why? Why do the kids line up outside the classroom? I'm not saying they shouldn't, but can you justify it? Can you justify giving children grades? Can you justify how you do your feedback or you're marking. If you can't justify it, ask yourself why. And by the way, giving kids grades, if you go back to Dylan Williams, is probably not a great idea most of the time, but that's probably for another day. So just to wrap up, you cannot achieve excellence by copy and pasting. And God knows everybody's tried to copy and paste Finland's approach to education, and everyone's failed to do that. Let's copy Chinese maths. Again, it doesn't work because there's a huge cultural element in that. You have to look at what is right for you, what suits your environment, and then build a system around that. And then it becomes about what you do every single day, not one off, every single day. And so let me leave you then with a parting question, because I've talked about a whole range of things that you can do. What is it you would be willing to say no to? What are the things you're going to actually potentially stop doing if you're going to do some of these things? Because you can't do everything. So if you're going to start doing some of these things, what is it you're going to stop? Let me leave you with that to think about.
Wow, that was really impactful. Thank you so much, Mr. John. Thank you very much. I know you're working with the time constraint, and if I'd given you about 2 hours, you would have kept on with it. But thank you very much. So I'm gonna go back to the comment section. I made a list of a whole lot of things that he spoke about. So from his session, can you just give a caption of one of the things that he said that got stuck to you the most? So I'm going to leave you with one. He spoke about consistency, that it's not something you do once in a session and you forget about it again. So it has to be a circle of consistency. So I'll leave you with the rest. So let me hear from the chat box. One statement that you said that got stuck with you, that you're taking back to your school. So thank you. So I'm seeing comments already on the chat. Okay, so if you have questions, I want you to pen down your questions. We're still going to have a panelist session when you can ask everyone your question on whatever comment or whatever topic it is about education. You can ask our panelists, and I'm very sure they are going to provide you with the right answer. So someone also said, so what stuck with someone is constant practice and systemic improvement. Thank you very much about that. Okay, someone said, be clear of who you are. Excellence takes time. It's not something that happens in a blink of an eye. It really takes time. We cannot underline that fact. You cannot achieve excellence by copy and pasting. You see something working in China, you see something working in Japan, and you feel that you want to bring it to your school. Definitely you can bring it to your school, but you have to look at certain peculiarities. You have to take note of some things before you can actually adopt such practice. Consistent feedback, very important, very important. After a session, you look at it, look at the system you've adopted. Is it working? Do we need to make changes? Do we need to make adjustments? Then you can actually go back. Be clear who you are. You can't be everything to everyone. That's very important. People are going to come up with different things, different demands. So you have to be clear in your policies that this is what we stand for. This is what we are about. And definitely people are going to align with that system you have talked about. Thank you so much, Mr. John. That was indeed an amazing session. Thank you so much. So now we are going to the next session. We have Mrs. Folashade Adefisayo here with us. We are so sorry, ma, you meant to come up first. And but we're glad you're here with us. So with Mrs. Folashade Adefisayo, she's a seasoned educator. She's a leader and a reformer with over 40 years experience across banking, corporate leadership, and education. She was the immediate past Commissioner of Education in Lagos State, 2019 to 2023, and she led transformative reforms that significantly improved students' outcomes, and especially a rise in WAEC result from 39% to over 80%. She previously served as the CEO of Corona Trust Council and founded the Leading Learning Limited, a consultancy focused on school improvement and teacher development. She holds degrees from University of Ibadan, University of Lagos, and the amazing Nottingham University. So renowned for her passion and equity, innovation, and teacher empowerment, Mrs. Adefisa remains a leading voice in shaping education policy and practice in Nigeria. We are so honored to have you here with us, ma'am. Mrs. Adefisa, you're welcome.
Thank you very much for having me. And thank you for including me with such an interesting panel of speakers. I especially thank Mr. Todd. I enjoyed his paper, jotted down a few points, and I can see from the Q&A that a lot of people have asked him. They're curious, especially because there was this huge movement on learning styles in Nigeria, and many people still believe that's the way to go. But thank you for the great teaching toolkit. That was very, I'm very grateful for that. You've asked me to talk about how to improve access and quality and outcomes in education, what it takes at government and leadership level. I did have a presentation, but I don't want you to play it because I think I will speak from the heart. And if I use my presentation, I'll talk for too long. Though there are one or two slides I would have liked to show, like graphs and charts and so on. But so I'll run us through and start with where are we? Because Mr. Todd was talking about your individual schools. I happen to be more concerned about the bigger system. And I know that most of us are concerned with our own school, but your school can hardly thrive in this environment if we don't remember that there's a lot happening in the education sector beyond your own school that impacts your own ability to deliver as much as you should. It impacts a lot of things. So I hope that you will hear what I have to say about the larger picture. And though you say, oh, I'm just a teacher in my own school, I'm not a commissioner for education. Yeah, it's just like when the second term of the governor came up and I was not returned as commissioner for education. Initially, I was quite sad because there were a lot of things I wanted to do. But I remembered again that I was not born, that my vision for myself is not to be the commissioner for education. That's just a title. That's just, and I've been many things, right from my banking days to now. So it's just another one on the way. The most important thing is that I've always wanted to be an activist, an influencer, and to be involved in education in this country at whatever level. So I hope that whatever I say, ginger you to say, let me come out of my little comfort zone and let me start to think about the bigger picture. Pardon me, I'm trying to time myself so that I don't take up more time than I should. I think it's looking good. All right. Okay. Thank you. So, education should be at the forefront of our socio-economic development if we're to develop as a country. Yet, millions of children are out of school. Learning levels remain very low and systemic equities persist. To transform this, I believe that we will need bold leadership and strategic government action. But beyond bold leadership and strategic government action, we will also need societal discussions. I've always believed that we should just keep talking. We should just keep talking. We should just keep refusing to accept the status quo as it is. And if we do, we will see that change will certainly come. Let's look at the current situation. Many of you own schools. We're talking about learning styles, this and that. Look, the teacher's coming to you. And remember what Mr. Todd said, and that research reinforces that the most critical factor in any school, in any educational system, is the quality of its teachers. When we all like to talk about Finland did this, Finland did that is because of the quality of their teachers. And because teaching is a profession of choice. It's no longer a profession of choice in Nigeria. In fact, I remember a young man who, one of my teachers who actually told me how he had been dating a pretty young lady and he wanted to go and meet her parents. So she begged him, please do not tell them you are a teacher. Because if you do, my father is not going to accept that you should be my husband. Can you imagine? I'm the daughter of two teachers, both my parents. My mother a maths teacher, my father a physics teacher. I'm very proud of the profession. So you can imagine how painful it is that we have come from that. When my father believed the best job any human being could do was to be the principal of Government College Ibadan. He never was, but that's to show you how important that job was. So teaching is no longer a professional choice. We have all these dilapidated structures around it. We have our curriculum, which remains obsolete, despite a lot of talk back and forth. There's still so much focus on rote learning and not skills development. It's better. I mean, if you watch WAEC over the years, which I have, the quality of questions has changed. It's become more focused on, more focused on thinking rather than rote learning but it's still there. It's still a significant proportion of it. So that, of course, means that we are churning out graduates who are really not ready for the workplace. There's inequitable access to education. I'm very happy with what Mr. Todd is doing, very happy with his school, but very sad that so many children, maybe 99.99% of the children in Nigeria are just going to have something that is so bad. And that's why I'm happy that somebody like that is coming out to speak to all of us, because that means, and I hope it means, that he cares, that it's not just his school that will be a beacon of light, but that we will start to develop other beacons of light. They say a journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. I'm hoping that all of us in our nations are building individual beacons of light. And like I said, not everybody is going to be the same. I will always be a believer in presenting children for WAEC and so on. It's our country. Let's see how we can make what we do in our country better. It's good for other people to do other things. I'm very happy about that. But I think we need to look at our curriculum too, so that it comes up to standard. In my days, when you finished from UI, you went to Oxford or Cambridge for PhD. Straight, nothing in between, because they knew that a UI education. That's why I'm a bit upset that Mr. Jala said the magnificent, marvelous Nottingham and not the great UI, which is where I went to. So our obsolete curriculum, the inequitable access, which saddens one entirely. And don't forget that many of you, your teachers are coming from these schools. So we better all be interested. Of course, funding is inadequate. We're not integrating with technology. We are not looking at the data. We say things like 90% of the children don't do this, don't do that. We're not collecting data. Even when you say 10 million children out of school, we are not sure. We think it must be more than that. Okay. Then, of course, there are bureaucratic challenges. There's a boom in private schools. That's a challenge for me, because many of them are actually really, really of very dubious standards. And they offer specific challenges like regional disparities, north-south, security issues, children not able to go to school in some parts of the country, cultural barriers against girls, even against boys in some places. The economic downturn in which parents are just so poor, they can hardly afford to send their children to school or send the children to school without eating. And of course, the poor terrain in certain parts of the country masked by this constitutional challenge. So the result is that we have this huge out-of-school children. People say 10 million, some people say 20, some people say 13. All I will say is we don't know how many. And I will also say that even if it's one child, it's still one child too many. Why should any child be out of school? Of course, the poor learning outcomes. Children come out of our system. They cannot read. A 12-year-old who has been in school for 6, 7, 8 years cannot read or write. The graduates really do not have workplace skills, whether they are learning, whether they are in teacher education or they are doing medicine or they are doing biz admin. They really cannot fit into the workplace because they do not have the skills that are essential for the workplace of today. So we have this frustrated youth. We are sitting on a keg of gum powder, extremely high unemployment rates, whereas there are many job openings that Nigerians just cannot do because we are not skilled for this. Are there any positives? Absolutely. First of all, don't forget that the Nigerian child is very intelligent, driven, excited about themselves. So much potential greatness. I always say this every time. I'm sure people must be bored hearing me say it. But for me as an educationist, I always believe that there is an A-star. There's a sweet spot of perfection in every child. My job is to find it. It doesn't have to be physics or maths. It can be dancing, it can be public speaking. It can be gardening. It can be cooking. It can be football. But whatever it is, my job is to find that and help that child to achieve their full potential because they are great indeed. They are creative, they have a strong desire to learn. And then there's a growing cohort of young Nigerian activists, of whom Mr. Ajala is one of them, and all of you in this group, who are impacting at every level, learning, growing. Look at the questions in the Q&A about learning styles. We've all been taught, oh, learning styles, learning styles. Now somebody comes and says, somebody who knows what he's doing and is building up a great school in our system says, no, research debunked it many years ago. I heard that research debunked it, but we're still talking about it here. You know, so I know that for many of you, are going to go back to the drawing board and address that. So there are many young, passionate, visionary, excited educational activists, and that is a positive. And there's a growing cohort of people who want to teach, enthusiastic about it. And they are pursuing multiple challenges, multiple channels. I love what is happening in the education sector. And of course, there's growing access to technology for these young people. And a growing interest in TVET, where we understand that if we don't go for vocational skills and so on, we just won't get it. We won't get it. Because nowadays, I have plumbers who are earning more than about 3 times what their teachers are earning. Let me say, like $1 million to 2 million naira a month. And that's a plumber. But that's the child you probably look at in school and say, he's not doing well, he's not doing well. What's wrong with this boy? But ultimately, all we can say is that our educational system is not preparing our children for the world that they are going to live in. I didn't mention the normal skills we talk about that we like to call 21st century skills, of which I've always been. Creative thinking, critical thinking, problem solving. We just are not preparing them. Meanwhile, everything has changed. The rules have changed, the tools have changed, but our own learning system has not changed. And the future belongs to those who can question, rebuild, and evolve quickly. So we better start thinking, even individually in our schools, that how can I integrate the reality of their lives with, even if I'm doing the Nigerian curriculum, how do I integrate it into every subject? And this is doable, and this can be done. As a facilitator with British Council, I was very excited to talk about integrating what they call the core skills into the curriculum. How do you integrate critical thinking into physics, into English, into early years, into home economics? How do you integrate it? How do you integrate creativity? How do you integrate problem solving? So these are things that we've got to teach our children. So let's talk about the things that we need to do. You know, first of all, I want you all to understand that many of us don't understand the constitutional requirements of education. There are 2 lists for funding. There's what's called the exclusive list that belongs exclusively to the federal government. And then there's a recurrent list. The recurrent list means that, the concurrent list means that every level has its own responsibilities. So local governments are responsible for basic education. State governments are responsible for senior secondary and part of basic too, because they support them. And federal government is responsible for tertiary education. But of course, if you look at the reality, they do all. And at the end of the day, it's a mishmash and a very difficult system to really understand and dissect into pieces. So there are some things that government has to do. The first thing, and I know we are not government, but I hope that what we say here will come out somewhere, you know. And what we say here will resonate with you, because when he told me, I said, I can't talk for 2 days or 3 days. But I hope that I will shift thinking, shift paradigms, and make people realize that in your own little corner, you can make a difference. You should make a difference. You know, so let's start with the first thing is always visionary political will and leadership. If the leadership doesn't agree with what you are doing, you're wasting your time. You know that. You know, in many places, if you look at school leadership, for instance, you send your teachers on training. Then the teacher comes back and says, oh, I'm excited. They told us learning styles don't work anymore. We have been doing this for 20 years. Please keep quiet and just follow what I told you to do. I'll kill that young person. And that's how powerful leadership can be. So while the most critical factor in any school system is the quality of teaching and learning, very, very close, if not almost at par, is the quality of leadership. So the quality of leadership at school level and the quality of leadership at government level, those two, if we have visionary people, we will drive change from within, from without. So that's number one. The second thing we have to look at, that means that we have to look at our policies. We have to look at our policies. You know, we have to look at, remember what Mr. Todd said about data. We have to look at data. We can't ignore data. We can't be saying there are 10 million children out of school, because they are not. Because if we look at Lagos State alone, the population of Lagos State, they say is 20-something million. If there are 20-something million people in Lagos State, then that means at least 10 million are children. We can only account for like 2.5 to 3 million. That means there is a significant proportion that is either unknown, we don't know where they are, we don't know what they're doing, or they're out of, but it's likely that many of them are out of school, and many of them are in little schools that we don't know what is happening there. So there's total, complete lack of control because we cannot collect data. And because of the silo-driven mentality of ministry, because you will ask me, why didn't you collect data when you were there? It was not the responsibility of Ministry of Education. We fought and fought and fought. They said, no, it's under economic planning. They came, they collected data, this funny data, which was obviously unusable at the end of the day, because they didn't understand it. We tried, we talked, we did a lot of, but the way government works in this silo-driven mentality means that you can actually not do much of what you want to do, which is very sad. So we've got to have policies that will address everything, like out-of-school children. How do we manage them? Someone told me now that schools are empty in some parts of Nigeria, private schools. They are emptying out. Then why don't you, and there are lots of children out of school, why don't you think about sending these children to these schools using what you call the voucher system? But thank God they started doing the voucher, thinking about the voucher system. Implementation hasn't started. It's a hard thing because that means that they have to pay for those children in the private schools. Even if it's not the full school fees, at least to get the school sustainable. So I think these are some of the things I'm very worried about, that we don't just have enough policies. I would talk about mother tongue. I know many of us are like, no, they must speak English. Yeah, they must. Many of us spoke our mother tongues first, and there's nothing wrong with that. But what is happening is that when you teach in a language that they go home that is not reinforced in their communities, many children who live in communities just don't do well. But I don't want any arguments about that. So then, I remember when talking about policy and direction, when I ask people, when a child leaves a school in Lagos State, what do you want him to be? I wish I could show the slide. They said, let me read it: passionate, intelligent, inquisitive, athletic, focused, patriotic, growth-minded, wise, team-spirited, empathetic, hardworking, blah, blah, blah. They had more than 100 adjectives. So I said, do you think it happens because you said it, or because you actually develop a plan that implements that child, that ensures that child can grow up to be what you want the child to be? As a parent, even in your own home, if you want your child to do well, you know what you need to do to help that child. So let me talk about, again, we have to, obviously governments have to increase funding. At the present moment, is 15 to 20% of the recommendation is 15 to 20. Nigeria's is about 6%. And of the 6% of the federal government's allocation, roughly 40% is for salaries. So that means there's very little capital investment being done. Now let's get to the most important factor: teacher training. We have to reinvigorate our colleges of education. We have to upgrade our teacher training. The teachers coming to you are not well trained. Go and read the curriculum for teacher training, and you will see that all these things that you are talking about here, modern methods of teaching and so on, are not included in that curriculum. We all have to start talking. We all have to start going for meetings. We all have to have our voices out, even if they don't listen to us. Someday somebody will, and things are happening. For example, why is there no private tertiary institution that offers a B.Ed? Why? Then we are all angry about low entry point into education. Why? Why not? Is what is going to happen? Teachers' conditions of service are poor. They are not treated with respect. Policies are made without taking them into account. They don't have defined career paths. Do you want your child to be a teacher in this system? Possibly not. And of course, we have to assess our curriculum. I think I've said that so many times. We have to build capacity across government. We have to leverage technology, the power of technology to collect data, to analyze data, to teach, to learn, to grow. And of course, for me, the eighth is the most important, and that is stakeholder partnerships. We have to come together. Government has to talk to us in the private sector. Governments, for having worked with them, they think generally the private sector, they just want money, this and that. But at the end of the day, if we do not talk to each other, we are not going to move forward. So I'm happy for the private sector to continue to do things to, to lead the way with change, because that's what is happening. Private sector is leading the way. Private sector is not waiting for anybody to come and tell them what to do. So I think that is just the greatness of the private sector. And I want to charge you, please, to continue to change, continue to grow, because the thing is, you can do your little thing, but the only way we can scale across the country is when government is doing the right thing. But hopefully, if you are doing the right thing, you remain beacons of light, people will start coming to you. How do you teach? How do you get your teachers to be this good? How do you manage your systems? And I'm hoping that is what this kind of gathering will do. Because the topic, again, in rounding up, is improving access, quality, and outcomes in education. What it takes at the government and leadership level. We cannot scale. We are happy that there are good schools in this environment, but we cannot be happy. I don't know about you. I cannot be happy when there's a Nigerian child who will never be able to do well in life, because we know what education does and how it opens opportunities for every child. So I want us all to think through that and remember that it is our responsibility to do well in our own schools in order to sort of, act like a catalyst for the whole system. But it's also our responsibility to see what we can do to make the system better. So thank you for inviting me. I'll try and stay to the end of the program. Well done.
Well, thank you so much. My notes is filled up already. I have lots of comments in the Q&A session. That was really an impactful session. She said a lot of things that got stuck with me. A lot of things, and so I'm still going to throw it open to the comment session. So what are your key takeaways from all that she said? I'm sure we can make a note from all the things that she has said. And the truth is, we need to understand that education remains that main important tool that can change the lives of a child, the life of a child or any country in the world. Look at every thriving country in the world and see how much they have invested in education. And you can see the ripple effect in their country, in their economy, in their leadership, in everything. So I think we as Nigerians or wherever we are, we need to rise up to that challenge and really take up leadership and not leave everything to government. You are a leader in your team. You are a leader in your department. You are a leader in your school. So I'm going to give us a call to action that we really need to take action and take ownership. And that is when we can really make a change. I attended a valedictory service of a school sometimes last week, and the child said that he wants to be a teacher, and he put in brackets, he said in the UK, and that got stuck to me. This is a child that has lived in Nigeria all his life, and he said, I want to be a teacher in the UK. So I was like, what happened? What's the difference? Of course, we know there's a lot of difference. So that's to tell us that we have a long way to go. And it's not something that happens in a time. It's a consistent practice. So let's go back to the comment section and let's see what are your key takeaways from Mrs. Adefisayo's session. Intentionality is the key with our policies. We need to be intentional. We need to upgrade. We need to reinvigorate teachers' training. And we have questions. Like I said, just take note of your questions. When it's time, we are going to come to it. The quality of leadership at school level and government is critical in driving change in the educational system. It is critical. There must be regular teachers training. We cannot rule out that fact. It has to be systemic, it has to be consistent, it has to be regular, and it has to be thorough. And she made mention of data. We need to keep data. Data helps with improvement. Data helps us to gather facts, and we can improve on those facts that we have gathered. Thank you so much, Mrs. Adefisayo. We are just going to keep going on and on over what she said, but thank you so much. And now we have Dr. Abimbola right here with us. And so who is Dr. Abimbola? Dr. Abimbola is a medical doctor. From medical doctor, she became an education leader. She founded the Kids Court School and Court Hill College in Lagos. She also leads the LAIT, Learning as I Teach Foundation, which has trained over 3,000 teachers and supported school leaders across 15 states in Nigeria and even at the global stage. She holds multiple degrees and certifications in medicine, public health, and educational leadership from the University of Lagos, University of London, Harvard, and Cambridge University. She's a published author and a coach. She's widely respected for her work in teacher training, very important, school development, and child-focused education reform in Africa. With a round of applause, please let's welcome Dr. Abimbola Ogunde. You're welcome, ma'am.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Fantastic to be here. Sitting up because honestly, I thoroughly enjoyed Mr. Todd and of course our wonderful Mrs. Adefisayo. I cannot stop listening, hearing, and learning from her. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you, Mr. Victor Ajala, for this wonderful platform. It's great to be here. I've been scribbling. I think we need to have Mr. Todd, for about 2 hours, like you said, because he scratched a few surfaces that I thought would be good for us to dig deeper into. So today, I just sent Mr. Victor a message. What am I exactly supposed to speak about, right? Because I think I've gone a bit too wide, but it's fine. I would just pick on a few things, and then maybe when we're having a conversation on the panel, then I would circle back to a few things. So again, it is wonderful to have you here or to be here. Thank you so much to all the participants. I think that we usually forget to thank them because they take their time out to be part of these very vital conversations. So as someone who is deeply invested in the daily realities of learning environments, both at the Kids Court School, the Court Hill College, acting as a coach and mentor to so many school leaders across Nigeria, Ghana, Uganda, Kenya. I know that improvement is not just a buzzword. It is a relentless pursuit, a daily commitment that impacts every child, every teacher, and every community. I loved how Mrs. Adefisayo spoke on the larger education space, and it is important that no matter who you are, in the pipeline, it's important that we also have a very good understanding of what is happening on the larger scale. And I love that I was scribbling all through that she's spoken to us about that. But the true work of change happens within the walls of our schools, where we speak about improving education for children, right? So it goes from wide, and of course it circles down, almost like think of concentric circles all the way, and it stops at what happens between teachers and learners, in and outside the classrooms. So the classrooms, the staff rooms, the playgrounds, and interactions, like I said, between students, teachers, and parents. So I don't want us to forget parents as well. So what do we do? What do we do at school level? How do we strategically approach improvement at school level, which is my topic for today? So I'm going to talk about this using 5 strategic pillars that I believe are fundamental for any school interested in improvement. They are not exhaustive, but they represent powerful levers for change that school leaders and educators that we can directly influence, right? That we can do at our own level. So the first one is cultivating a culture of unwavering excellence and growth. cultivating a culture of unwavering excellence and growth. And excellence is not an accident. It is not an accident. It is not a happenstance. It is a habit. It is a mindset, a shared expectation. Many schools have policies on paper, but how do we embed this daily? I remember I spoke about the daily work that must be done. The daily work that must be done. I'm going to say a number of things that our previous speakers have spoken about, but just take them as consolidation, right? You know, from the mouths of two or more people, then you know that we are sort of trying to say the same thing, or what we're trying to say is important. So excellence, it starts with clarity. What does excellence look like in our school? What do we want excellence to look like in our school, for our students, for our teachers, for all the stakeholders, right? Even parents, right? What does excellence look like? We need to define it. So that is almost like, you know, stands at our goals or our vision, right? What does it mean? So is it academic excellence? Is it moral excellence? Is it socio-emotional excellence? What does it look like? And we need to define it, and we must communicate it. So I think someone needs to write that down. It must be communicated. When I speak to leaders, they have a lot of things. They are so passionate, a lot of great intentions, but they are the only ones that know these intentions, right? Nobody else knows the intentions apart from them. So number two is that when we're cultivating a culture of unwavering excellence, it thrives on feedback. Create consistent, non-threatening, and I like that Mr. Todd said that, non-threatening feedback loops for teachers. Peer observations, instructional coaching, opportunities for reflections, whatever way that you choose, let it be consistent. Let it be consistent. Let it be built into this, the way when we hear systems, sometimes we think they are big words. It just means how do we do things? How do we do things? How do we want to do things? And how do we do them, right? And when do we do them? Who does them, right? So we must, for students, right? Feedback might mean creating rubrics, chances for revision, and then everybody understanding that failure is a step towards learning. The second bit of excellence is we must sustain it by celebration. We must recognize effort. We must recognize progress. We must recognize innovation, not only the final achievements. We must celebrate small wins, individual breakthroughs. So a teacher who was, finding ABC challenging and has now sort of finally figured it out, how are we celebrating that teacher? How are we recognizing that effort? And how are we celebrating collaborative successes, right? When a team of people, I don't want to give examples. I can also speak for a long time. So I don't know why they gave me 15 minutes, but if I start giving you examples, instances, then we will not live here. But collaborative successes, how are we celebrating it? We must build morale, right? And reinforce, we call it positive reinforcement. We must reinforce desired behaviors. And of course, crucially, cultivating a culture of unwavering excellence demands a growth mindset from every single person, from the leaders, the principals, the head of schools, etc., right? Embracing new leadership approaches. It's so interesting when you're speaking to leaders, owners of schools at the highest levels, and they are so, that we don't want to do that. That's so, and you're thinking, if you are acting as a lead, right, LID, then what is the fate of everyone who is working in your system, right? Teachers must try new pedagogical techniques, right? Students also must tackle a difficult subject. Support, yes. Collaboration, right? All these things, but it must happen. Taking that belief that our abilities can be developed through dedication and hard work. Our abilities can be developed. So pillar 2, so that was pillar 1. Pillar 2 is empowering and elevating our educators. And every speaker who has spoken before me has said all that. How do we empower? We must empower. What happens in schools is at the foundational level is the work of the teachers. And data says that, right? School-based improvement. Number one, teachers. Number two, leaders. So if we fail to empower and elevate our educators for various reasons, again, I work with a lot of school leaders and school owners, and there's all that teachers are leaving, teachers with this, teachers with that, you know, all sorts of reasons why we shouldn't be intentional at school level, right, to empower and elevate our educators. They are the beating heart of the school. Their quality directly correlates with student outcomes. It's a direct correlation. Right? Let me not segue. How do we empower them without overwhelming them? Number one is that we invest in targeted professional development. Stop generic CPD. Oh, everyone go and learn this. Everyone go and learn that. Taking time out to figure out what does each person need, right? So we must move away from that generic one-off workshops. Provide training that directly addresses specific classroom challenges. It's end of the session now. We've all done our appraisal and all that. What are we doing with the data? What are we doing with the data? You know, are we going to use that data to just say, okay, you're going to be promoted, you're not going to be promoted, and we all move on? Or are we looking at that data to say, what information can we get with regards to the things that we must address? What are the challenges? What are people finding difficult to do? What are the things that are happening that are good as well and that we can scale, right? So addressing specific classroom challenges, addressing specific challenges of specific teachers, right? New curriculum demands, right? Things are changing every day. And of course, innovative teaching methods. Make training practical, make it hands-on, make it consistent, make it inside the school. So it's not until, I think, you know, Mr. Todd said that, it's not until when we all go for some conference very, very far away that we are saying that there's professional development. How is CPD integrated into the daily life of our school? Our schools are living, breathing, you know, communities. How is professional development integrated into the daily life of our school, right? And how are we ensuring that that professional development is relevant to our school, right? And to the needs of our students, the needs of our teachers, and of course, to the needs of the school as a whole. When we're empowering and elevating our educators, we also have to talk about fostering a culture of collaboration and peer learning. One of the most important, I'm looking for the word, impactful, you know, professional development is that one that happens within the school amongst teachers themselves. Oh, I come into your room. Oh, look at that. Oh, you know what? Let me help you. Let me look at that. Let me come into my room, observe that. You know, how are children, how are teachers, you know, learning at peer level to, you know, by themselves, to themselves, with themselves, right? How are they learning, right? And are you creating, you see, I mean, this I've been asked to talk about. I mean, I cannot be more passionate about it. How are we creating a structure that ensures that teachers have the opportunity to share best practices? Not just, oh, you're all teachers, you're all great. Don't forget, in your life, share best practices. The school day, the school week, the school term, the school year, is there intentional, right? You know, structured, created opportunity for teachers to share amongst themselves best practices, to solve problems together, to mentor one another, to act as coaches. There's one of the things I love in my life is peer coaching. I tell people that there's always that, oh, we want to look for someone who is, way ahead of us, very fundamental. But what about people that are on the same level as us, going sort of in the same direction, the same trajectory? How do we learn from one another, right? So again, reducing non-instructional burdens. There's a lot of work that I call them administrative tasks that teachers are bogged down with, that really, 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 again, maybe at data level, doesn't really add to the work to be done in the classrooms and of course, learning outcomes for students. Let's ensure that we are all those meetings, 28 meetings in 5 days, meeting here, meeting everywhere, things that can just be sorted out by someone doing a voice note, someone doing a video and posting that out, right? We all have to all meet, right? And talk. So that is also very important. How do we empower and elevate our educators? How do we provide autonomy within framework? So Mr. Todd has said that, don't forget that your teachers are professionals as well, right? So how do you ensure that there's that? Are we trusting them as professionals? Are we giving them flexibility? Are we developing a level of ownership, right? Are we empowering them to be able to make certain decisions, right? Or to sit in the room when certain decisions are being made? That's very key as well. Flexibility in adapting their teaching methods to the students' need. They are, at leadership level, we are not the one inside the classrooms, but are we ensuring that the teachers, when we go into the classroom and they are doing something that they have not said they are going to do, are we having a broad mind, an open mind, even as leaders, to say, okay, tell me more about this, right? This is fascinating, this is interesting. Tell me more about it. And the person is able to say, oh, the reason why I did ABC is because this student needs, they need ABC. And are we prioritizing their well-being? And, this is very topical, in today. I would tell you that even, for me, I pride myself being a very type A, very, but I can tell you that this school year threatened me. I was, the school year, so, and more than ever before, I then, begin to understand that, well-being is extremely important. How are we supporting teachers with their mental health, with their, how are we ensuring that there's burnout prevention? How are we creating a positive, supportive work environment? Because happy teachers create happy learners, right? Now, let me move on quickly. Pillar 3 is that, we're thinking of strategic approaches for improvement. And I'm sort of limiting myself to school, the school level. Pillar 3 is designing a student-centric learning experience. And we cannot speak enough to that. Our schools exist for the students. So every strategic decision must ask, how does this benefit the learners? Personalized learning pathways, holistic development beyond academics, promoting students' voice and agency, effective use of data. I don't know how you are in the classroom or anywhere in the education space in 2025, again in the world space, but because we're educators here, and you are not sitting with your data. You are not sitting with data. You are not utilizing assessment data. So it's not just for grading who came first, who came second, who came third, but utilizing it diagnostically, right? To identify the learning gaps and to, okay, how does this improve instruction? And it's not just when you've done your midterm assessment, when you've done your end of term assessment, your formative assessments in the classroom, right? Even student observation, right? There's data is not even just I mean, I've done a lot of that, but let me not. So it's not, there's something called street level data. That's your day-to-day interactions with the children, right? It even speaks about, identifying children who have social emotional issues and gaps or need support, in terms of their mental health. That is data as well. So it's not just for academic data, but all the other data that has to do with, teaching, that has to do with the children, has to do with your school environment and how it supports, the learners. We must be vigorous and rigorous in collecting those data and using the data. and analyzing the data and using the data as well. Very key, very important. Recognizing that every child learns differently. While academic success is important, somebody has said that already, we must intentionally cultivate all the critical thinking, the creativity, the problem solving, that prepares them for life in itself, that prepares them for the world of work. That we don't want our children to be 20, 21, and then that's when they are thinking, they are learning about critical thinking or problem solving, or some of those skills like adaptability, right? When they are 21, what happens to a child that is 9, 10? Why can't we talk about that in the primary classroom and bring it down to the, to that level, right? In the age-appropriate ways, promoting student voice and agency as well. So is our school designed for students, or is designed for the teachers? Or is designed for the school owner and the head of school, right? So if you want to improve your school so that schools do what schools are meant to do, meaning exist for students, then you must design a student-centric learning experience. Pillar 4 quickly, because I can imagine that my time is fast spent. Strengthening community engagement and partnerships. The years where schools are existing in silos, existing in isolation, is over. Active parent engagement. Your parents must be a core part, not just for parent-teacher conferences. They must be a core part of the school activities, decision-making board, sessions, and supporting their role as partners in schools education. How are you leveraging community resources? How are you connecting with local businesses for internships? So internship now is not something that children do when they are 25. Internship can be done in year 9, can be done in year 8, can be done in year 10, SS1, SS2, JSS3, this long holiday now. What says a child cannot go and do an internship? Community leaders for mentorship, and even local organizations for extracurricular activities or practical skill development. Your school as a community hub. Consider how your school can serve as a resource center for community, people coming together either for adult education, workshops, their libraries, our school libraries, so beautiful. Why is not open to the community, right? And the community can come in, right, and have access to those resources. Even though there are some schools that have 40 computers in their ICT room or computing room. How have you opened that up, for the betterment, for lack of a better word, of the community that's your school? How is your community influencing how is your school influencing the community it resides in? Pillar 5, as I conclude, is, of course, I will never speak without speaking about this. Strategic and adaptive leadership. Ultimately, the vision and execution of all the pillars I've spoken about rests heavily on strong school leadership, visionary leadership. Articulate a clear, compelling vision for improvement that inspires all the stakeholders. There's some things that you say that your teachers wake up in the morning and say, wow, that's deep. That's deep. Your parents will say, how do we help? How do we help? Do you have a vision for improvement that gets everybody excited? And of course, data-driven / data-informed decisions. We must, as school leaders, use data, academic data, attendance data, and also disciplinary data. Well, also, in fact, billions of data. Everything that happens in your school, data can be collected. And how do we use that to identify areas of strength, weaknesses, and inform strategic planning and measure impact? Resource mobilization and management. Leaders are crucial in securing resources. I loved it when Mr. Todd spoke about investing for long term. So this is not, school is not, let's just be fast. Let's just be fast quickly. So we start the school this term, the next term, wow, the school has blown. We are probably building on sandy land, right? So our resources, our financial resources, our human capital, right, our material resources, and how we are ensuring that they are utilized efficiently and effectively to support strategic goals. How are leaders adaptive? How are leaders resilient? So many things are happening. There's something, when we are caught in in between, there's a word I'm looking for, in between eras, in between time. What happens that we are the ones that have to change from being this way to being that way, or adapt from being this way to that way. And I think that that's what is happening in this maybe decade, maybe where there's a transition, things are moving, technology, all these things, so many things are happening. Even the needs and expectations of teachers too are changing, right? When we started our school in 2009, there are certain things that we didn't used to talk about, but guess what? They are center stage down. How are leaders adaptive? How are leaders resilient, right? And the the educational landscape is changing. In fact, so leaders must be agile, and leaders must create an agile school, right? They must be innovative, and they must create a school that is able and has the capacity to move, to innovate, and so we're not doing this. So we are not doing this. You're going to be obsolete. You become irrelevant. There are certain things that things are moving in a certain way. The best thing to do is to understand, of course, first, a lot of research, a lot of conversations like this, a lot of, okay, how does it affect our own context, right? And then how do we adjust? How do we adapt? But saying, I don't want to hear what is happening. It does not, I don't care. This school has been here for 40 years. Do you know who we are, right? And then you turn a blind eye. You don't want that to be you, right? And there are so many, cases of organizations within and outside the education sector that refuse to open their eyes, and then at the end of the day, they cease to exist, right? All right. So as I conclude, if I had to choose just one principle that empowers all these strategies, it is this: focus on creating a learning ecosystem where every individual, student, teacher, leader, parents feels valued, supported, and challenged to grow. The journey of educational improvement in schools is continuous. It never ends. It requires courage, collaboration, and a deep-seated belief in the potential of every child and the potential of your teachers. By strategically focusing on culture, empowering our educators, putting students at the center, engaging our communities, and fostering adaptive leadership, we can transform our schools into beacons of excellence, not just on paper, but in a vibrant, thriving daily life of learning. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. If this was a physical session, I'm sure it would have been a standing ovation. But thank you so much, ma'am. That was really impactful. I can see you have a lot to say. So I'm sorry, my participants. Probably subsequent sessions, we're going to give our speakers enough time to speak. But thank you so much. That was really amazing. The first thing she said in our session was excellence starts with clarity. So we need to be clear the direction we're going. If we're going to implement any policy, we need to know what focus, what is our focal point, what direction, and that will inform us of decisions to make. But thank you so much, Dr. Abimbola Ogundere. So you can also put your key takeaway in the comment section, and our time is far going now. But thank you so much. So we have our final speaker. She's ready for us today. We have Mrs. Regina. We have Mrs. Regina Jemide here with us. Thank you so much, Mrs. Regina Jemide. It's an awesome time to be with you. Ms. Regina Jemide is a dynamic and visionary school leader. She's currently heading the Riverbank School, a leading Christian British Lutheran primary school and secondary, with a sharp focus on excellence. She holds credentials in Montessori, EYFS diplomas, and postgraduate qualification from Nottingham and Cambridge University. Beyond her work in school leadership, Mrs. Regina is also serving as a lead consultant at the Sacros Associates, guiding educational organizations on strategic development and quality standard. With a warm round of applause, we invite Mrs. Regina Jemide here with us. Thank you, ma'am.
Good morning, everyone. I have listened attentively to all the speakers so far, and I have been truly blessed by the profound insights shared by our speakers on the call to consistently raise standards in our schools. As educators, we must never stop reflecting on how we can effectively reach our students and to help them become the very best versions of themselves. It's a privilege for me this morning to speak amongst such outstanding and passionate speakers. And I want to sincerely thank the convener for today's event, Mr. Victor Ajala, for putting together such a timely and impactful event. This morning, Mr. Ajala has asked me to speak about the topic, which is beyond academics. Beyond academics. And, you know, it is important for us to know that as educators, we are mentors, we are life coaches, you know, we are societal role models for all the children we teach and for the teachers as well. So I will start by, you know, just giving a brief definition of what it is to speak about beyond academics. You know, when we talk about beyond academics, we are talking about the social, emotional learning. We're talking about intellectual, emotional, social, ethical, and the physical aspects of our students. You know, we are, you know, it's about creating, you know, a supportive environment for our children to learn. It's about promoting mindfulness and well-being programs that will continuously help them to achieve all the goals that we have set for them. It's about helping the students develop self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and for our students to make responsible decisions for themselves. So long-term benefits for all of this improves their academic performance, it improves their resilience and their interpersonal skills. We all know that education has changed over time. There's been a changing landscape towards education, and there's been a shift from content delivery to whole school development. So when we teach, it's not just about the ABCs and the 1, 2, 3s. It's not just about the grades they get, you know, at the end of term, the grades they get, you know, when they do their checkpoint and IGCSEs, but it's about the role of the 21st century skills that we have put in them. You know, is about their emotional intelligence, it's about their well-being. You know, Bimbo talked about, you know, the wellness of the children. It's about the skills that we have imbibed in these children. And what are these skills? We're talking about a holistic education. We are talking about the mind. We are talking about their body. We are talking about their heart. We are talking about their spirit. What about their mind? What about their body? We must be interested in what the children are thinking about. What are they thinking about? We have our children in our classrooms. They are there present physically. They are physically present in our classrooms. But are they there? What are they thinking about? You know, what is in their heart? Are we passionate about their emotional well-being? Are they happy to come to school? You know, are they sad? What's going on in their lives? What's going on amongst their friends? What's going on in their homes? What about their spirits? What are they confident? Are they independent? You know, are we building a holistic kind of education, or are we just interested in the academics? You know, so when we talk about building these children beyond academics, we are talking about so many things. We are talking about, you know, impacting, you know, their hearts, their minds, their body, and their spirit. We should be reflecting on their emotions to promote, you know, self-understanding and self-reliance amongst the students. And one very important thing that we must remember is the hidden curriculum. What is a hidden curriculum? We all know what the hidden curriculum is, you know, where the hidden curriculum is unintentional. These are things that are not in our plans, in our long-term plans, you know, but these are things that we do to model what we want the children to be, to model their, you know, to build their character. These are behaviors and mindsets that we have to help develop the character of the children. So what are the attitudes? You know, what communications, what attitudes do we pass on to our students? What are those things that we do that are informal, but will help to develop our children? What behaviors are we modeling daily? What daily behaviors are we modeling? As educators, we must be sure that, we shape the minds of the children, we shape the hearts of the children, we shape the body and the spirit of the children that we teach. So it's really important for us to be mindful about all of these things. What attitudes are we passing on? What communication do we pass on? What are we intentionally teaching our children? What skills and values are we passing on? We must be mindful. We must be mindful about, the relationships that we have with our children. Do we have trust? Trust is very important for us. Empathy, consistency. Mr. Todd, Mrs. Adefisayo and Bimbo talked about consistency. Do we trust our children? Do our children trust us? Do we show empathy? Do we create an inclusive environment? Do we create an empathetic environment? Do we create a respectful classroom? And what cultures do we have in school? What is our culture? What is our culture teaching our students? What is our culture? How is our culture shaping the character, the mindsets, the values of our children? What strategies do we have? What one-on-one check-ins do we have to ensure that our children are happy, to ensure that our children, are happy coming to school, they're happy in the classroom, they're happy in every single subject they attend? What is the classroom culture we have? All these are important, all these are important for us to create, education, to raise the standards beyond academics. What culture do we have for listening? Do we listen to our children? Do they listen to our voices all the time? Do we spend time? Do we give them time to speak? And when they speak, do we listen to them? A lot of us have questionnaires where we listen to people's voice. We do the past questionnaire. We do our own internal questionnaires where we listen to the children. But do we actually listen to them? Are we listening to their minds? Are we listening to their hearts? Are we listening to them? Do we know our children? I talked about one-on-one check-ins. Can you tell if your child is sad or happy just by looking at your child's face, just by hearing your child's voice? Do we know when there's a shift, when there's a change in their emotions? What classroom cultures do we have? We need to pay attention to all of this. We need to ensure that while we have our eyes on the academics, we have our eyes on the social, emotional skills and learning of our children. What kind of soft skills do we imbibe in them? What kind of communication, collaboration, adaptability, resilience do we ensure that we get out of them? How do we communicate with them, and how do we encourage them to communicate? How do they collaborate, and how do you ensure that you pass on these soft skills through communication, through collaboration, through adaptability, and through resilience? What are some classroom things that we should do, to integrate all these, soft skills, for all these soft skills to come out? Do we do group work? Do we give them leadership roles? Do they get involved in debates, not just inter-school debate, but intra-school debates? In your lessons, what kind of group work do they do? Do you ensure that for every lesson and for everything they do in class, you pay attention to all these programs that bring out the soft skills or develop the soft skills in the children? What leadership roles do they have in class? Are they involved in different teams, sports teams, music teams? It is when they do all of this that you see that, you intentionally develop these soft and life skills. How are we doing it? Is it important to us? Or is it only the academics that is important to us? What do we do? Bimbo talked about, partnering with families and partnering with parents. I am talking about inclusion. It's really important. As educators, we cannot be seen to educate the children without the involvement for the parents. We cannot sit to say, I know it all. Teachers, yes, you are knowledgeable, but you do not know it all when it comes to educating and developing a well-rounded, a total child, a holistic child. We must be seen to promote equity and inclusion in our schools and in our classrooms. Mr. Todd talked about, CPDs, not just one-touch CPDs, but, a wide range. It's not just a one-touch, it's a marathon. It's what you do over a long period of time to ensure that, teachers have imbibed all they need to know to develop a well-rounded child, to develop a child who is strong in academics and who is strong in all other areas as well. So what are we doing to promote equity and inclusion in our classrooms? How are we partnering with families and our communities at large to ensure that these soft skills, in our children are passed on, effectively? Do we understand the children's backgrounds? What kind of, inclusion do we practice in our classrooms? One policy doesn't fit, it all for all the children in our classrooms. What backgrounds, do we understand the student backgrounds and their needs? One child's need is different from another child's need. Do we have a differentiated kind of support and cultural sensitivity in our classrooms? It's really important that while we differentiate their learning in class, we must also be seen to differentiate, support for the different children. One child's need, is completely different from another child's need. One family's need is completely different from another family's need. So we must be seen to differentiate support and cultural sensitivity, even, when we talk about social and emotional learning. What inclusive language do we practice in our class? What visuals do we practice in our class? What are classroom norms that continuously develop, a well-rounded and total child? How do you involve the parents? What kind of information are you giving to the parents? Are you differentiating the information you send to the parents because their children are on different levels or because their children have different needs? Why do we need to partner with the parents? How do we partner with the parents? These are very important, aspects of our lives as teachers, of our lives as educators, to ensure that we are seen to continually raise the standard in terms of building and raising, the children beyond their academics. How do we interact with the parents? What information do we put in our newsletters? What do we say to them in terms of our open days? When we speak to our parents at open days, or when we have conferencing with our parents, are we just giving them information regarding their children's academics, or are we talking to them about the children's social and emotional needs? And how are we passing on this information? Are we choosing our words? The way we pass on this information to our parents is the way you're telling the parents, that you're helping them build their children in class. What kind of partnerships and mentorships do we practice amongst our school community? Do we have a good, community in our different schools where we rub minds and we mentor one another to continue to bring out the very best in our children? We have talked about so many things, how to raise the standards in our, in our academics, the children's academics, in our leadership as teachers, but then again, for us teachers, how do we regulate ourselves emotionally? How do we take care of ourselves as educators? Because if we do not take care of ourselves, we will not be able to take care of the emotional development of our children. How do we reflect on our influences and our biases? Are we biased? If we are biased about certain families, about certain people, about certain practices, then it will be very difficult for us to impact and raise our children beyond academics. It will be very difficult for us to develop their their social and emotional development if we are dealing with biases ourselves. All the speakers have talked about continuous professional development. It's key. But you see, when we talk about continuous professional development, it starts with us. It doesn't start with what the school is doing. It starts with us. No one can define what your areas of challenges are but you. No one can tell you what you need to improve on but you. So if we need to, or if we need to build our children, we need to build ourselves first. So what are we doing ourselves to develop ourselves, to grow ourselves, to train ourselves, to be better educators, to be better leaders, to be better schools? When we think deeply and we reflect on our challenges, then we are able to then determine what kind of help we need. If we do not help ourselves and develop ourselves, we will not be able to help and develop the children in our care. We all are teachers, and for us to impact our students, we need to be seen to grow. And that is a success story that we need to have for ourselves before we can be seen to impact, the children in our care. So for an action point of view and from a reflection point of view, what is that one habit? What is that one thing we need to change so that we can start implementing, implementing our work beyond academics? What is that commitment to yourself as a teacher, to yourself as a head of year, to yourself as a head of department, to yourself as a school leader, to yourself as a school owner? What are those habits that will need to change so that we can start implementing effectively what it is to raise a holistic or a total child? As I close, because I was given just 15 minutes, we need to remember that, building a total child is non-negotiable. It is the heart of everything we do as educators. And when we focus solely on academics, and when we neglect the social and emotional dimensions of learning, it does a great disservice to our children. Academic excellence must work hand in hand with emotional intelligence, with resilience, with empathy, and with communication. So we need to constantly remind, ourselves that we must be committed to nurturing the whole child. We must be committed to nurturing the mind, the heart, and the character of every child that comes into our space. Let us continue to intentionally, every speaker spoke about intentionality. So we must continue to intentionally build our soft skills, build teamwork, build problem solving, build leadership, build adaptability, because these are not just, tools for schools, but these are tools for life for every child who comes into our space. Our mission is to raise confident. Our mission is to raise compassionate, capable individuals who will not just strive in the classrooms, but who will strive in their communities, who will strive when they start working, who will strive when they are grown, when they are in the workspace. This is our call. This is, our mission. As Mrs. Adefisayo said, we should never give up as educators. We should be catalysts. We should be leaders who will not kill the drives of our teachers. Bimbo talked about, our culture. What culture do we have? We should be seen to continuously live our culture. Our culture in our different schools shapes the character of our children. And I pray that, we will continue to make a difference, as Mr. John Todd said, make a difference in the lives of our children. We must be, I pray that we will continue to be intentional and be consistent in our lives as educators. Thank you very much, Mr. Victor, again, for giving me the opportunity to join this impactful session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mrs. Regina Jamide. That was really, really impactful. And once again, I still apologize to all our participants and our panelists for the time constraint. Subsequent seminars, we are going to have a lot of time. So right about now, we are going to be having a panelist session. So if you have questions you like to ask our panelists, you can put them on the comment section. So our panelists, if you're still here with us, please, we'd like you to come on board. And we have some questions we need to ask ourselves. And so if you're in the audience and you want to ask a question, please, now is the time to ask your questions. Just put them in the comment in the Q&A. And if you want a particular panelist to address, you can also put the name. So I'll start with this first question. And Mr. John, I'm going to start with you. We often talk about global best practices. And at times what we do as co-leaders, we go to different countries and see what we can adopt. So my question is, how do we localize all these practices? I'll give an instance. In Africa, it is, or in Nigeria, it's considered for a child to give you something with a left hand. That's just it's a cultural difference. Or in Africa, when you wake up in the morning, you want to greet your parents, you'll have to lie down flat. Africa. So when we are looking at global best practices, how can we localize them? How can we bring them to a level where it is achievable? I'll start with you, Mr. John. That's
simple as being respectful of local culture. I don't see that's even a really deep question. If you are serious about being in a country, so we are an international school in Nigeria, we have to sit within the local culture. Likewise, if you went to the UK and your kiddies did that, someone would think there was something wrong. So to me, I don't think there's anything particularly challenging there. I think where schools struggle is where they forget where they are and they have a mindset that, say, we're a British school or we're an American school and you have to follow our culture. We are a British independent school in Nigeria, therefore we follow Nigerian cultural traditions. To me, that's simple common sense.
Thank you very much. Ms. Adifsa, would you like to react to that?
It. I mean, if you know where you are, there's nothing you use. It's I guess you put yourself into the local. You contextualize what you are doing. You must always contextualize what you are doing. But I mean, if that's the culture, you ensure that the children, continue to appreciate their culture. That's the children continue to appreciate their culture. I too don't see it as a major problem at all. I have never, when people say, I think what people say most is beating. Let me tell you, when the colonialists first came to Africa, what they noticed was that people don't beat their children. The children were brought up on wise sayings, proverbs, role modeling, and so on. It was not beating. So that is not our culture. Our culture is to respect, and we learn respect from looking at our parents, from hearing them talk to us, from listening to wise sayings and proverbs, from all those stories by Moonlight and so on. So for me, I don't really see any conflict. I don't.
But I think, Victor, there is an issue here that, let's say, good example would be Singapore or Shanghai maths. So let's adopt it. And then we don't get the same results. They actually took some Chinese teachers to England and got them to teach. The problem is the way mathematics is taught in these countries is culturally very different. When children in the UK go home, they go out to play, they do music, they do football. When children in Shanghai go home, they go to a tutor. They do more mathematics and they do 5 or 6 hours of maths a week and conversely, the parents complain there's no creativity. So the whole cultural argument, you have to sit and look and say, what's right for where I am? You can't simply lift. Everybody ran to Finland and said, oh, let's copy their education. Education is culturally biased in so many different ways. We look at Nigeria, the south of Nigeria, it's about academics. If you're a school owner here and you say, oh, the most important thing in my school is football, nobody will come because the culture here says a certain thing. That's not that football is not important. Nigeria would not be Nigeria without football. But it's what fits within that context and how you then define your story. But you can't simply cut and paste somebody else's system. You have to understand, where am I? Where do I sit? What works in this particular place?
Well, thank you so much for that. I'll go to you, Dr. Bimbala. And I've realized that policies are really made at the leadership level, but the real change we are looking at, it happens in the classrooms. So how do we bridge these gaps in policies and practice?
All right, thank you so much. So I think the very first thing is that when we are creating or drafting the policy, then there must be proper representation from all fractions, the teachers, the school leaders, even parents, even student leadership at a certain level, right? So that I think is the very first thing. The next thing is that is the wider community. Are they educated? So when we talk about communicating the policy, it's not just sending the policy as an email. At a certain level, it must be workshopped. People need to come into a room and then the policy is explained. People ask questions. Where are the gaps? How do we integrate? What does this really mean? Why is this policy, being decided upon? And then once we've done that, then there's obviously like change management. There would always be the early adopters, the people who would be the ones to sort of further explain the policy in practice. So what does this mean in practice, in classroom practice? So I've written all this down and it's nice and fancy. But when we get to classroom on Monday morning, what does this mean in the classroom? And then people need to, that also needs to be sort of taught as well. People need to see that in practice. So you would have people who, maybe the early adopters, showing the others, training the others that this is what it means in real life. And even at that point as well, we all must be open to getting feedback because the classroom teacher already exists and is already practicing ABC. So if you are saying you want to add this, the teacher is going to say, in my classroom, this might not work. There might be a gap here. How does this work? So we must be open to questions about this policy and responding to those questions in a way that ensures that learning is actually happening, meaning we are actually empowering the people who are to do these things. And of course, there's the time. What I find out is that when we bring a new policy A, then we want everybody to be experts in A by next week, Tuesday, right? And we actually putting that time to say, okay, so this is going to take us some time. And during this time, we're going to support A, B, C, D people are going to be available to support you. So even if you have questions after this initial training concerning this policy, you can reach out to A, B, C, D. And of course, within the time frame that you've given yourself for adoption, implementation, and blah, blah, you have that timeline. You have pockets of time where it's okay, after 3 weeks, we're going to meet again. After 6 weeks, we meet again. And at every point in time, you have to make sure that there's clarity. And we must also be open to there's a word, again, adaptability, flexibility. Something might look nice when we are thinking about it, but in classroom itself is even causing bigger issues and bigger problems. So how are we even going to be flexible during the implementation or the pilot phase? Let me use that word. The pilot phase of this implementation that allows us to even go back and say, what we thought was going to happen is actually not happening. What can we do differently, right? So I think is that middle that we miss. So, you know, a few people on top decide on something. We have not added any member of the implementation team, and then they do that. So it's the gaps with education, communication, time, right? And of course, that normally with iteration cycle or feedback loop going back and everybody just feeling part of what is happening. You know, I think that is something to think about.
Well, thank you very much. So I'm going to come to you, Mrs. Regina. So it's a question in the comment section, and I already have that written down as well. It says, how do you strike a balance between academic excellence and character development in students? Because I think John made mention of something that that you're seeing a school and all they are standing out for is just academic excellence, just academics, and parents really want a mixture of, they want their children to learn music, they want them to be active in sports, they want them to be complete. So how do we really strike this balance, academic excellence and character development?
Character development, you know, it's our calling. It's what all teachers do, you know, and it all starts from when the children come into the classroom. As I said, you know, in my presentation, you know, your attitude towards the children, the culture you have in school, the classroom culture, you know, the respect you have for the children, and even the extracurricular activities. For sometimes we may think that children get into clubs just to while away time, just to drive their passion. But it is when they do these extracurricular activities that you're actually building character in them. You are building their soft skills, because when they do all of this in different teams, you know, in different groups, you know, you are developing patience, you're developing adaptability, you are developing resilience, and everything, you know, how do you want to shape the character of the children? It all happens from when they step into school, how you relate with them, the culture you have in school, the culture you have in class. You know, when I talk about the culture you have in class, you know, do you give them an opportunity to be independent? Do you give them an opportunity to communicate? You know, do you give them a chance to be part of the class? You know, how do they fare when they go for their extracurricular activities? All of that builds their character. And when you allow the children to get exposed to all of this, you know, marrying it with the academics is easy, and they become better students.
Mr. John, please, I'd like you to react to that. I think I was following your school sometimes last week, and I saw a lineup of activities they did. They did about farming, they did some presentations. So, and you have wonderful sports facilities. So, where do we really strike the balance between academics and character?
Yeah, I mean, it's you can't say it's here or wherever. Again, it depends on where the children are, the age. But I think it has to be, back to that word, intentionality. There was an interesting thing, I'm trying to think of the guy that did it, had this construct called split screen teaching. Maybe someone will remember. It's a British professor. And the idea was you have a learning concept, okay, maybe adding numbers to 10, whilst at the same time you're looking at a piece of character development. So within your lesson plan, you are always looking at both. And I think quite often now schools have moved away from, there's an academic deputy and there's a pastoral deputy, and much more it's being seen as one construct. When we look at data, for example, where we look at data, we'll look at CAT 4, progress in maths, progress in English, but alongside that, we'll look at past data, which is information about the child's social and emotional state. We'll look for trends in that. So, for example, if a child is suddenly not doing well academically, they haven't suddenly lost something. It's going to be part of something else. So there's no simple answer to this. It's a whole approach, and you have to keep both things in mind at once. And I think as soon as you start trying to say 50% of this or 60% of this and 40% of that, because and apologies, someone kept using the word adaptability, Dr. Abimbola, adaptability. As a good teacher, if you find suddenly your kids can't work as a team or they won't share, what do? You stop. You refocus, because your lesson won't work well if your class is disrupted because the children can't get on. So the academics will go out the window if the children can't actually work in the way you want them to work. So you stop, you focus on that particular skill, you come back to it the next day, the next day, the next day, because in teaching them those social skills, leadership skills, character, call it whatever you want to call it, that actually creates the learning environment and makes the learning effective and efficient. So this is down to you as a teacher, where you have to say, you know what, there's no point teaching maths today. I have to teach my kids how to be respectful, how to be how to be nice to each other, you know, but how to interact. You can't get them to feedback on each other's projects without teaching them how to give feedback. So it has to be intentional. You have to be adaptive and be ready to throw your lesson plan in the bin and teach what the children need there and then.
Thank you so much. So Ms. Adefisayo, I have a question for you from the comment section. It says that if you have the position of the Minister of Education today, I didn't know that already.
Yes, please. We want that.
I was trying to avoid that, but I'm just coming back to it. So if you are the Minister of Education today, where will your reformation start from?
Again, like Mr. Todd says, this is not an answer that you can give a very, not question you can give a very simple answer to. You cannot afford to think about one item at a time. You have to remember that many things have gone wrong. But I would always focus on teachers, on their training, on their learning, on their experiences in their classroom, on making teaching a career of choice. I think that would be my mantra. And then developing school leadership so that school leadership flows out of school teaching. And it's not that you just say, you are level 17, it's time to become a principal. No, that there's a deliberate and intentional plan for teachers to rise to the position of school principalship. They go for training here and there. They go for, you give them experiences. I mean, you give them a whole, they have to have a portfolio of things that they've done, things that they've learned since they got into teaching. I mean, I would always focus on the teacher. And I would always focus on working with the states, because I've shown you that the country is very interesting in the way education is divided. So a state government can say, well, look, primary school is not my business, and they won't invest in it. And the local government is the weakest form that we have. So when you put your foundation in the hands of the weakest form of government, nothing is going to go well. And so again, I would like a situation where we all talk together, because I think it's very interesting that as Commissioner for Education, I don't think I ever talked to the minister, ever. I don't think he knew me or I had any interactions. But I think it's important that you interact across all these levels. So I think collaboration, teamwork, and with the private sector. The private sector has a lot to teach, but people in government are walking on a different path. They don't want to learn from the private sector. They don't want to hear from the they don't want to hear what they're doing. They just say, oh, those schools cheat, forgetting that they too cheat. So I would look for a situation where we'd be able to collaborate. But I think I would focus on teachers and then focus on. It's very difficult to say one item. You shouldn't. Even as commissioner, I had 13 items that I tried to focus on. You can't focus on one. What about the children? What about their background? What about their comfort when they get to school? Children from poor homes, how do we ensure that they are still able to go to school? Girls, how do we encourage them? So it's a lot of things, but I think teaching, if you first teaching and get teaching right, you'll get many other things right. It has what you call a multiplier effect. Thank you. I must say thank you, and I'm sorry, I have to leave at this point. Please pardon me. Thank you. We'll talk later.
It's okay, ma. Just one last question before we end this session, and that's to you, Dr. Abimbala. So I have a case study in my comment section, and this person says that he's trying to teach math to a group of students, and they're working on the Wowby board, on the display board, and the senior leader comes in and talks him down that what is he doing? I've been teaching for the past 10 years. So what is this whole system you're working on? So how do we as teachers, how can we react to that?
Okay, so I mean, I get asked this question a lot. Fortunately or unfortunately, and that is the truth. It might sound very wicked sounding, but the teachers in a school exist at the expense, I don't know if it's a good word, of the leadership of that school. And that is why leadership is very key, right? There are certain times that teachers can advocate, right? They can educate, they can bring forward suggestions, but that also depends on the culture of the school, right? And of course, that culture of the school is, the personality, the experience, the capacity, and the mindset of the leader is also something that shapes the culture of the school, right? So if you're in a school system or a school space where a senior leader comes in and really probably doesn't understand what you're even trying to do, maybe doesn't want to look bad because what you're trying to do, then you have a couple of questions to ask yourself. Is that the kind of space? First of all, is the person a kind of leader that you can educate? Is there a bottom to top approach, right? Is it acceptable in the school, right? Are there other members of the leadership team that you can speak to who can educate, whoever this individual is? And if you are in a school that doesn't exist, some schools have open forum, town meetings, where you can say everything that you want to say, like give it to us. And we will get, So, but if you're not in that kind of space, then you have to ask yourself a question: is this space the kind of space that I can thrive in, or can this space support my my growth, right, as a leader? So it's multifaceted, to be honest. There are so many things to consider in that sort of scenario. But I think that whoever it is, that teacher would have to ask themselves a couple of questions with regards to what are the next steps to take after such an incident. And it's actually more common than and I think for me, that was the reason why at the Light Foundation, we moved from teacher training to school leadership coaching. Because after we did many years of teacher training, they said, that's a good idea, this is asking us to do. When we went back to our school, the head teacher said, what nonsense is this? And it always brings me back to this learning styles thing. We talked about that is so last decade, right? And it was finished, it was finalized, it was broken down. That was buried in the 2010s. So for people to come to 2020 and still be talking about that, it means that something is wrong, right? And usually what happens, I'm digressing, but what happens is that teachers will bring some new understanding, right, into their classroom space. And then the leader who is still focused on the last, old information, he say, no. I don't even know what you are saying. I don't even care what you are saying. Learning styles are learning styles. They are great for everyone, and we must continue to use learning styles. So when we are talking about, and I think I loved when Mrs. Jemide said, good afternoon, ma. It's good to have you here. And I like that we studied that even as leaders, when we're talking about professional development, it's not only for teachers, the leadership, this what is the leadership? Even there are certain schools that even their board actually go on training when it comes to teaching and learning. So it's not that you're on the board, you don't have education, and then you are coming to the board and telling us nonsense, So even the board actually go for training on, teaching, education, what is new, what must be, what is old, what is archaic, what theories have been debunked, right? So it really, really is a systemic, sort of situation. I don't know if that helps.
That does. So at this point, I really want to say thank you to everyone. And before we leave, I just want a closing remark from you. I'll start with you, Mrs. Regina Jemide. What would be your call to action for educators and heads of schools, ministries, and all stakeholders in education? What's your closing remark?
Being a teacher, for me, it's a privilege to be a teacher. You are molding minds, you are creating, the future. So let's take it as a privilege. Let's continue to reflect. Let's continue to improve our practices. Let's continue to learn, and let's be intentional about everything we do in the classroom. One thing we must do, we are not just molding children that will get a first class or will get all the A stars. We are molding children that can lead. You have children who get the first class, but they cannot keep a job. But you also have children who got a third class and become CEOs. What kind of children are we molding? What kind of children are we raising? Let us raise children that, will stand at par, with their peers all over the world. Let's raise children that will continue to impact, their spheres of influence. And well done, teachers.
Thank you so much. Mr. John, your closing remark. I think you're muted. We can't hear you. Your microphone.
Okay. The most important thing to follow that is not the grade, it's what kind of person comes out. And if we look at where we sit, there are many people in big positions that have big degrees. It's about character at the end of the day, and it's about who you are and how you live your life. Because let's face it, after you've got your job, nobody really cares what university you went to. Nobody really cares how many A's you got. It's about who you are and how you live and what you do that defines you as a person.
Thank you so much. Dr. Abimbola.
Fantastic. I think, again, I'm going to piggyback on what has been said. I think a question was asked earlier, and when I heard that question, I thought, oh, we need to do much more. When someone was saying, how do we balance? I think that's the word, character education and academics. And I loved what Mrs. Jemide said, that the core, and of course this has been reiterated by Mr. Todd, the core of what we do in our schools is to help, to be part of the building, the development, the growing, the coming out, of standard, proper, well-behaved, great people of character, right? A generation of sound character, sounding character, great people. Let me just do that, great people. And I love the analogy that Mr. Todd has used, that once you've had your job, who cares if you got 10 A's and 10 C's? But when you come into the workplace, how do you relate? How do you behave? What sort of person are you? So when you say, is it academics or is it character, then it's both. They're intertwined. The one is not without the other. It's not one or the other. It's not, it is together. Is a meshing. So if you're in your classroom and you're thinking, math, and then a child is punching on, if we take nothing from here, the outcome that we are looking for in our schools is emerging to get of that character and that academics, and sometimes even character even more than academics, and that is the truth.
Wow.
Because sometimes we are trying to make all children get A, and we know that they are not going to, because even we did not all get A's. But can every child come out of our schools being of excellent behavior, top character? Absolutely. 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 And now in the 21st century, I dare say that even that character, with all the stuff happening in the world, even that character is even now more important.
Wow.
That character, that behavior, that person is even more important now than even this A star in math, A star in English. All the problems we have in our world today, across all the wars, across all the poverty, all the decisions that people make, that they are not thinking of the man on the street, being made by people who have poor character. So that is my own submission.
So thank you so much.
Thank you so
I
much.
sincerely want to appreciate every one of you. Mr. John, Mrs. Regina Jemide, Dr. Abimbola, and Mrs. Adefisayo for really taking this time out to be a part of this discussion. And to all our participants, I really want to appreciate you for taking this time out once again to join us. Someone was asking me about the gift cards. We still have a couple of $10 gift cards to give to people, and so that wasn't a bait. So we're going to give them out, and we just want to say thank you to everyone on our panelists. And so everyone, if you're joining us, so please, you can follow Mr. John Todd on LinkedIn to get more insight. This is a discussion that will not end here. Follow Mrs. Regina Jemide, follow Dr. Abimbola, Mr. Adefisayo, follow them for more insight. You can follow me as Victor Ajala on LinkedIn. And thank you to everyone. So there's a survey going on, so please fill the questions, send in your email address and your name for your certificate of attendance. So we have 5 people, and the first person we have is on YouTube. We have Aluko from Day Waterman. So you just won yourself a $10 gift card. Congratulations. And we also have one of our winners as well is in the comment section. We have Oluwabanke Oye Soko. You have a $10 gift card as well. We also have Ella Gold. Ella Gold, you also have a $10 gift card. Just send a DM and we'll tell you how you want it to be. And the final person is but we would have loved to give one active member of the community, and unfortunately it was anonymous, so we can't do that. So we have a Miss Uzo Eze. You also have a $10 gift card, and we say congratulations to everybody, and thank you very much. So you can also follow us on Facebook at Lead Educators Network. It's a community, and we're just going to keep improving. We're just going to keep getting better. So thank you once again. Congratulations to everyone. And so please stay active, keep remaining an educator. It's one person at a time, one goal at a time. In your little space of influence, you can really make a change. In your department, in your classroom, whatever you teach, online or physical, you can make a difference. And thank you everyone for having me here. I'll see you next time. My name is Victor Ajala. Thank you. Bye. Form.